and we'll get started. Right. So like I said, my name's Nikki Bevan. I'm a sugar cravings and life coach. And in this workshop this evening, we are going to plan what we're going to eat or not eat over Christmas. You can apply this to alcohol and drinking as well. I'm mostly going to be talking about food. Personally, I don't drink alcohol, so I don't need to plan what I'm going to drink. But if you do, and you want to have maybe some sherry or some port or wine or gin and tonic, Pimm's and lemonade, whatever your thing is at Christmas, this same process will apply to alcohol. So whilst I'm very much going to be speaking about the food and specifically Christmas, you can take this process and you can apply it to any event that you have coming up in your life. So it could be maybe a holiday or a party or, you know, a family gathering. But specifically tonight, we're going to focus on Christmas. And my traditions might be very different to your traditions. So I'm going to do it with my traditions, but please obviously change this to what suits you and your family or whatever you're doing or not doing over Christmas, however you're celebrating it or not celebrating it. So like I just said, for anybody that else has just come in, if you want to interact with me, please use the Q&A, which is down the bottom of your screen. You can tap on that and only I can see the responses that go into the Q&A box. Right. So I'm just going to talk about the theory behind planning ahead of time. So some of you, if you're familiar with my work, you will have heard me talking about your primal brain and your prefrontal cortex. So the human brain that you have in your head is a phenomenal tool. So I'm going to simplify it right down, and I literally work with the primitive part of our brain and then the higher part of our brain. So our amygdala, our primal brain, and then our prefrontal cortex. And our primal brain is really old. It quite literally has not evolved since our caveman days. And back in our caveman days, we needed to gather our supplies. We needed to ensure the safety of a pack. Anything new and anything different meant death. We lived in a very harsh, volatile environment. If we came across some honey or some berries, we would have gorged on them because we wouldn't know when we would see them again. Kind of made sense back in the day. But now, in our modern day world, where we've got quality streets, celebrations, toffee fees, which was one of my favorites, sweets, chocolate, fizzy drinks, alcohol, all the extra cheeses and biscuits and cakes and puddings that come out at Christmas, we are surrounded by dopamine giving things. So our primitive brain, that primal part of it, quite literally thinks that it needs to eat all the chocolate, otherwise it's going to die. It thinks the dopamine hit that we get is a survival requirement. But it isn't. So luckily for us, using our prefrontal cortex, we are able to think rationally. We are able to plan ahead of time, to think to the future. And our prefrontal cortex will always give you your best advice. This is that is your expert. That part of your brain is your expert. And it wants the best for you. Whereas your primal brain, it just wants the instant gratification. It just wants to eat all the sugar, and it does not give a shit about the longer term consequence of that action. It doesn't care about the weight gain. It doesn't care about the sugar hangover. It doesn't care about the fact that then you're irritable and brain fog and aggravated medical conditions. Your primal brain literally just doesn't think anything more than the instant moment. So we don't really want to be guided by that part of our brain. We want to listen to it if we are in a life or death situation. If you're about to cross a really busy road, of course you want to be listening to your primal brain. You want to be on guard, and you want to be keeping an eye out for the cars. Of course we want to do that. When you're in a supermarket, when you're at a party, when you're in your house, you're not in a life or death situation, most of us. So at that point, we don't need to listen to our primitive brain. We don't actually need to believe its opinion. And I promise you that your primitive brain will be lying to you. It is going to want you to eat all of the rubbish. It is going to want you to eat the whole bag of chocolate buttons. When that tin opens, although it's not tin anymore, is it? It's plastic. But when that celebrations box opens and you take out one, your primal brain is going to be screaming at you to carry on eating. That is going to happen. Understanding that and accepting that, then when it does start talking to you in that moment, it then shouldn't be a shock. You can expect it to be there. So as most of you know, I encourage you all to name your primal brain. Mine is called Sue. And if you've named your primal brain, or if you're making that decision now, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A and tell me what you call your primal brain. Because when you name it, it just detaches yourself from it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. We've got Fred. We've got Doris. Love that name. So when you detach that from name your primal brain, it detaches you and you're able to have a conversation with it. So for this evening, we're going to listen to our primal brain, but we're just going to step it aside for a second. So Bob, there's another one. So it doesn't matter what you name your primal brain, just give it a name. You want to make friends with your primal brain, really, because they're coming along for the ride. When we're accessing our prefrontal cortex, when we're planning ahead of time, we're being very deliberate and very conscious about our choices, versus leaving it to the minute, in the moment. Your primal brain takes charge and it just wants to eat all the crap. So as much as possible, we want to be functioning out of our higher brain. And we're so fortunate as humans. Animals don't have the ability to think ahead of time. Animals don't have the ability to plan to the future, but we do. So let's utilize that skill. So that's the theory around why we want to plan ahead of time. At least 24 hours. If you're using this process at any other time in the year, you want to do it at least 24 hours ahead of time. So what we're going to do now, we are going to quite literally write a plan together. So I am going to write my plan at the same time you are writing yours. So I will just give you a little minute to grab a piece of paper, to grab a pen, and we're going to do this together. So I'll just give you a minute to go and grab those things. While I sip my tea. It's the perfect temperature. You know, when it's hot, but it's not too hot that you can't enjoy it, but it's not, it's like that perfect, oh, that's really comforting. And I've got peppermint in my cup. Okay. So hopefully you're back and hopefully you've got a pad of paper. So this is what I use. This is when I was actively focused on losing weight, this was the notebook that I used. I would plan ahead of time what I was going to eat. And then on the next page, it was what I actually wrote. And the idea is that these two are exactly the same. I also wrote down regularly how much I wanted to weigh. I weigh, in the present tense, I weigh 126 pounds. So I have also done this process for myself. Christmas 2020, Christmas 21, and now we're going to do Christmas 22. So because I'm just maintaining my weight now, I still do plan my meals actually, because it's just whenever anything's planned, it's just easier. But I don't now, I'm not as rigid as I was when losing weight was my focus. So I'm going to talk about my tradition, but obviously yours might be slightly different. So please adapt this to suit you. So first of all, I'm just going to really focus on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. So for me now, we've changed our tradition slightly. So we prep our Christmas dinner, Christmas Eve. We do all the preparation Christmas Eve. We now cook and eat our main dinner, our main Christmas dinner, Christmas Eve. So we had a few years when my boys were little where my husband's an amazing cook as well, and he does most of the cooking Christmas, but I'm cleaning and tidying and prepping along with him. And it just felt like we spent all day, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, in the kitchen. And I got to Christmas Eve one night and I was like, do you know what? I don't think I enjoyed that. So since then, we do everything Christmas Eve. So what I'm about to go through might actually be your Christmas Day, but we'll do the 3 days. You'll get the gist. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what day you plan your food for. But what we want to do is think about, what do you actually want to eat and enjoy eating over these 3 days? So if I'm going for Christmas Eve, I generally, I'm going to scribble it down first instead of writing it neatly in my book. Generally, I don't have breakfast. I practice fasting, so I don't have breakfast. So Christmas Eve is going to be no different. I'm not going to plan to eat anything Christmas morning. And because generally Christmas dinner for us is quite a big meal, so we have turkey, we have roast potatoes, cauliflower cheese, broccoli, carrots, peas, veg, pigs in blankets, we have stuffing and all. It's a big meal. So Christmas Eve, I'm not actually going to eat anything until my Christmas dinner. And we'll probably have that around 2 o'clock. So the first thing is, so I'm not going to have anything on my plan. And then my first thing is going to be 2 o'clock Christmas dinner. Now, for you, if you're going to have a breakfast, please go ahead and write down what you're going to have for breakfast. So I will actually have a breakfast Christmas Day. So I'll be doing this in just a second with my Christmas Day. But I'm not going to have anything Christmas Eve until 2 o'clock. So at 2 o'clock, I'm going to write down that I'm going to have my Christmas dinner. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do it on my whiteboard. Bear with me while I just swap this around a minute, and then you can actually see what I'm doing. And we are going to get very, very, very specific, because the more detailed you can be at this point, the less drama you're going to have to deal with from your primal brain. I'm going to explain that in a minute, what I mean by that, but because then we're going to talk about the obstacles. So first of all, we're going to do the plan. So I wasn't planning on doing this, but this is quite a good idea. Hopefully that you'll agree. Right. So we're going to do Christmas Eve. I could have just wrote Eve, couldn't I? Christmas Eve. So I'm not going to have anything to eat until 2 o'clock. So at 2 o'clock, I'm going to have my dinner. Now, I'm thinking ahead of time. I'm going to have a little bit of everything. So I'm going to have turkey and I'm going to have pigs in blankets. But what we want to do is even get specific about how many pigs in blankets. So I'm going to allow myself to have a spoonful of veg each. I'm going to have I think 5 pigs in blankets is quite good. So I'm going to have 5 pigs in blankets. And now normally with a roast dinner, I don't actually have roast potatoes very often. They don't feel good in my body. I'm not saying you shouldn't have them, but they don't feel that good to me. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to plan ahead of time to have 3 roast potatoes. Now, I know, especially if they're crispy, I know that my brain is going to be telling me, oh, let's have some more. Let's have 5. Let's keep going. But I know that if I keep eating, I'm going to feel rubbish. And actually, I've decided this Christmas, I want to give myself the gift of health. I don't want to give myself the gift of feeling rubbish. That's a pants present to give myself. So is there anything else with my roast dinner that I think I need to, that I know that I'll overindulge with? So I'm going to do a spoonful of veg and stuffing, the pigs in blankets, the roast potatoes. I don't think there's anything else. So normally then, after a little while, people will be saying, oh, we could just have some Christmas pudding. If you want to have a pudding Christmas, just ask yourself, why do you want to have it? What is your reason for eating that pudding? And if it's something like, I want to be included, I don't want to miss out, I don't want to offend them, you get to question that sort of programming, because when you think to yourself, I don't want to miss out, what you are actually then allowing yourself to miss out on is feeling good after you've eaten. You're missing out on the opportunity to feel good or to lose weight. Now, it might not be your goal to lose weight over Christmas, but you get to ask yourself, very deliberately, what do you want to have? So I'm not going to judge you if you plan in to have Christmas pudding or Christmas cake. And if you are going to plan it in, be very specific. I'm going to have like a thumb width slice of cake with maybe a bit of ice cream and a bit of cream, maybe a drizzle of custard. Be very specific about what you're going to allow yourself to have. I was thinking about planning in to have some ice cream, but I'm also so aware now that I don't actually enjoy the taste of it anymore now when I eat it. So questioning, why do I want to have it? I'm really only having it to be included. Well, actually, when I make it about the pudding, I'm not including myself, because in that moment I'm focused on the food. I'm not focusing on the people around me. And actually, I've decided that Christmas is about my family. It's about the people that I'm with, not so much about the food. So this year, I'm actually going to decide not to have a pudding. But what I am going to do, because I know if we're eating it too, I know that probably at about 6, 7 o'clock, I'm going to start to get a bit peckish. So at 7 o'clock, what I'm going to plan in is to have some cheese and crackers. So again, being very specific, I'm going to have 2 crackers, 2 times crackers. And when it comes to the cheese, we also, so my biggest weakness now is cheese, because my brain now has got addicted to that. So being very specific about the amount of cheese you want. So I'm going to have, let's say this, and this is getting really, really anal, isn't it? But I'm going to have, just trying to think of what maybe millimeter strip, 4 millimeter strips of cheese to go on my 2 crackers. And what will happen is when that time comes, my primal brain is going, oh, just have a little bit more, just have a little bit more, just have a little bit more. I am then able to say to her, I don't need to listen to you. Thank you for your opinion. Your opinion is noted, but this is what I've planned to have. So we don't need to have that conversation. I'm going to talk more about the obstacles in a minute. So the other thing that I really enjoy now, because I've come away from the sort of the sweets or the confectionery or the chocolate, is medjool dates and nuts. I do really enjoy dates. And again, I don't have them very often. So I'm going to plan in. I'm not going to put a time against it, but it'll probably be at some point between here and at some point after dinner. I'm going to plan in 2 times medjool dates, and I must remember to put those on my shopping list as well. Last year, I also had down that I was going to have half a bar of peppermint chocolate. So if I do have chocolate now, I tend to buy the conscious chocolate because they use coconut sugar. But even last year, it didn't make me feel good. I didn't actually enjoy the feeling after. I enjoyed that initial, but I didn't enjoy it afterwards. So I'm not going to do that this year. Because I want to give myself the gift of feeling good. The other thing that you might want to plan in is any nibbles. So, for example, I enjoy crisps, not very often, but I do enjoy them. So, along with this here, I'm going to plan in half a pack of crisps. So what I mean by half a pack is, you know, the big bags that you can buy. I'll put half of that into a bowl and I'll allow myself to have that. And what happens when we plan it out like this, we can then really enjoy what we've decided to eat. And I know that the roast potatoes and the crisps aren't really going to make me feel that great. Because I'm making that decision ahead of time, I know what I'm signing up for. So that means that when it just stops that drama, why didn't I stop at 1? What is wrong with me? I can be like, no, I know what I'm signing up for, but this is what I'm planning to do. So that's my Christmas Eve, and this might be your equivalent of Christmas Day because you might have your main dinner Christmas Day. So what we then want to do is think about, for me, then I'm going to think about Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So I'm just going to wrap these two together. So that's Christmas Eve. So Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Now on Christmas Day, we make more of an effort. We make a bigger deal over breakfast. So actually for my breakfast on Christmas Day, and we'll probably have it around 10 o'clock, I'm going to plan in to have ham and eggs, ham and 2 eggs, fried eggs. And I'm going to plan in to have, because this is the only real time of year, this and my birthday, I'm going to plan in to have 1 pano raisin pastry. I have no idea how to spell it. You'll notice that my spelling is awful. So 1 pano raisin pastry. So I'm going to have that Christmas Day and Boxing Day. I know that actually the pano raisin doesn't make me feel that bad, but if there is something that really makes you feel rubbish, really consider why you want to put it on your plan. Is it because you just want to be included? Is it because you don't want to offend somebody? Is it because you think it's a treat. And you just want to question those beliefs. Like, if it makes you feel crap, it's not a treat. So it's a treat is a lie. We could sit here and go into the whole belief system and conditioning around, you know, it is social to eat and being included and all of that kind of stuff. But the fact is, we do live in a society where food is used as entertainment, which is why being very deliberate and conscious about what you're choosing is so much more powerful and giving you your control. So then having a think about, right, what else might I want to eat Christmas Day and Boxing Day? And again, for me, I like picking on crisps. So again, I'm not going to put in the structure of the time so much Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But I am going to write down that I'm going to allow myself half a pack of crisps. Again. Last year, I'm going to change my pen because it's running out. Last year, I did planning to have, I've got down here 5 toffees, those funny little chocolate with the chocolate on the outside and the caramel, hard caramel in the middle, but they didn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to plan it this year, which means that when I see them, and even thinking about them now, my mouth waters and my brain and my body remember. But I'm going to sit with that emotion and remind myself that I'm giving myself the gift of wellness for Christmas. Yes, that would be nice in the moment, but it's going to make me feel crap later on. And I don't want to feel crap this Christmas. So pop in the Q&A if there's anything that really, that you really associate with Christmas, and yeah, share anything that comes up for you. So thinking through Christmas Day and Boxing Day, what we generally tend to do then is get all the cold meats out, get all the cheeses out, get the pickles out. So I'm going to want to plan that in on my schedule. So we're going to go cold meats. And if you know, I kind of know now that I won't overeat on this, but if you know that you will, be specific. The more specific you can be, the better. Actually, so I don't usually have chutney, but I'm going to plan in some chutney, crackers, what we might do is cook another load of roast potatoes, but Christmas Day for us is really we try and keep it easy, a no cook day. But I think what I'll do is just plan in 3 more roast potatoes. So you can see, like this, I haven't specifically, actually none of this, that's not a refined sugar, but where I am now, the pan of raisin has got sugar in it. But what you're going to eat might be very different to what I'm going to eat. So don't look at what I'm doing and think you should be doing the same. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is for you to think, right, what are my traditions? What do I want to include? And why do I want to include it? Understanding that reason why and liking that reason why. And if you're only doing it purely because you don't want to upset anybody or you want to fit in, just question that thinking. And just like your reason why. So again, on Christmas Day and Boxing Day, I'm going to do 2 times Medjool dates at some point, and I will allow myself to decide when that's going to be. And the other thing that I want to include is nuts, because I am a big fan of nuts, Brazil nuts, pecan nuts. I love them. So each of these days, I'm not going to plan in any nuts for Christmas Eve because I've got a lot of food there already. But what I am going to do for Christmas Day and Boxing Day, because this is a bit more sort of buffet style, I'm going to plan in a handful of nuts. So just thinking this through as well, just coming back to sort of the main dinner, Christmas Eve, or for you, it might be Christmas Day. I might not be hungry. If I've eaten all of this, I might not actually be hungry. So what I might just do here is put a little, if my belly is actually rumbling. So only if my belly is actually rumbling am I going to eat that. Because what will happen, and you might notice this, you might have experienced this already in your world, is you're not hungry, you weren't even thinking about food, and then someone puts something in front of you, and all of a sudden your belly starts, you're like, oh, actually, I think possibly I could be a little bit hungry. So checking in with your actual stomach, is it actually empty? And if it's not empty, it doesn't need food in it. It certainly doesn't need sugar in it. So giving yourself this, only if my belly is actually rumbling, am I going to eat this at 7 o'clock? What happens now in my head? Now I've done this plan, I now know what I'm dealing with. I don't have that, I don't want to overeat. I don't want to, I also don't want to miss out. I don't want to, what am I going to have this? Am I going to have that? Am I going to have everything else? Because whenever we plan ahead of time, all we now have to do is stick to that plan. So you can, if you haven't quite kept up with me, then obviously you can watch the recording back. But the other thing that I want to talk about is obstacles that might get in the way of you sticking to your plan. And I think, or I know for me, my biggest obstacle, well, there's two things. One, Sue, my primal brain, screaming at me to eat more, because she always wants me to eat more. She's going to be seeing everybody having ice cream and going, oh, but, we just want some ice cream. It's not fair that we don't get any. And the way that I respond to her is with kindness. And I allow her to have her strop. I experience that kind of huffiness. And I just then remind myself of why I'm doing it. And the reason I'm not having the ice cream is because I don't want to feel shit. I would much rather sit for those 2, 3, 4 minutes of a little bit of discomfort whilst everybody's eating their dessert and I'm not. I would rather be uncomfortable for that short period of time versus being uncomfortable and feeling sick for hours. Because that's what I used to do. Not only would I overeat, but then I would eat, like I would go back for seconds and thirds and fourths of dessert. And then, which was fine for that 20 minutes, half an hour whilst we were eating. But then for the rest of the afternoon and the next day, I felt crap. So I would much rather choose the short discomfort than the hours of discomfort. I would much rather choose the 5 minutes, of feeling like I'm missing out or deprivation or the fear of missing out for a short period of time versus missing out on feeling healthy for the rest of my life or losing the weight or maintaining the weight as it is for me now. So you get to choose your discomfort. And especially around Christmas, you get to decide what gift do I want to give myself this year? And I'm not here to tell you what that should be, but there's a little voice inside of you that knows what that should be. So being true to that little tiny voice instead of your loud primal brain and society's conditioning of what the holiday season and Christmas should be like. You get to choose, and you get to choose what's right for your body. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is mentally rehearsing ahead of time. So the one of the reasons I've done this today is because we now have 10 days in order to practice going over this in our head. So what that looks like is imagining them bringing out the box of heroes or the tub of heroes. Imagine that you've allowed yourself to have 5. You eat those 5 and then you decide to stop. Noticing your brain probably about 10 minutes later, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour later. So, I'll just have another one. One won't hurt. I'll just have another one. How do you want to respond to your brain? And then practicing that. So allowing yourself to experience the urge, feel it in your body, and actually practice responding to your brain with, yeah, I hear you, but we've made our plan and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for your opinion. I appreciate you, but I'm not listening. And then imagine how you're going to feel afterwards when you haven't eaten or overeaten. You're not going to feel as groggy. You're going to feel really proud of yourself that you've used this time as an opportunity to learn how to overcome your urges. And then when you get to later on in December in the new year, when everybody else is feeling crap, having put on weight and is now trying to go to the gym for the next 3 months to get rid of it, you're going to be like, no, I had what I wanted, I enjoyed it, and I feel good. So mentally rehearsing ahead of time. Imagine what your brain's going to say. Imagine how you're going to feel. Imagine dealing with that emotion and then saying, no, thank you. I'm sticking to my plan. And then how good you feel afterwards because that's what you've done. And the more that you visualize it in your head and the more you see yourself doing it and the more you see the packet of heroes and hearing the crunching of the chocolate and noticing your mouth water, which is what I'm doing, my mouth is doing now, which just shows that it's not the chocolate because I have none in front of me, so it's purely my mind that's creating that. And imagine myself breathing, I'm safe to feel this urge, I'm not having any chocolate, I'm giving myself the gift of well-being this year. And then imagine yourself moving on. So what we've talked about now, I'm just aware of the time, so I'm going to start to wrap this up. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. But we've spoke about the theory as to why we want to plan ahead of time, because we're using our prefrontal cortex instead of being driven by our primal brain. Primal brain doesn't give a crap about the long-term effects of what we eat. Our prefrontal cortex will always give you your best advice. Making your plan, and when you're writing your plan, questioning why you want to put something on there and do you like that reason why? Because let's imagine that your mother-in-law has made a huge cake and she wants you to experience a slice of it. So you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to eat the cake this year, but I also don't want to offend her. You can't actually offend your mother-in-law. Her choosing that emotion is her choice. She will feel the way she's feeling based on thoughts she's having. That has nothing to do with you. But what you can do is respond really nicely by saying, thank you very much. I can see, like, I really appreciate you've made the effort of making it, but this year I just don't want to eat it. This year I'm choosing to give myself the gift of well-being. So I really appreciate you and thank you so much. I love you lots, but I'm gonna choose not to have any today. Thank you. And she might get huffy. That's up to her, but you've honored yourself. You don't actually make anybody else feel anything, and you get to choose what's right for you. Because the other thought of like the one I hear so much is, oh, I'm missing out. I want to be included. But actually, when you have that thought, what you then long term miss out on is the well-being, is the feeling better, or it's the weight loss. So again, what are you actually missing out of? All you're missing out of is taking part of an activity. But when you're there with them, actually you are so much more present with the people around you. You actually can look them in the eye and truly connect with them, because when it's about the food, you're all into the food. You're not concentrating on the people around you. So when someone says to you, oh, aren't you having any pudding? You could be like, no, 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 that's not important. The most amazing part of this moment is that I'm with you and I'm connecting with you and I really love you. So actually looking at the people and loving the people, for me, is life enhancing, versus focusing on the pudding, and which is actually life disenhancing. That's not the right word, but affects our well-being. But I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm just saying this is how I manage my mind in these types of situations. So that's how you overcome the obstacles, by just responding to your brain in that moment when when it's screaming at you to eat all the food. You can respond lovingly. Thank you. I hear you. But we've made our plan. We just need to stick to our plan. There's nothing to discuss here. And then imagining having those conversations in your head. Imagine responding to your mother-in-law. Imagine responding to your primal brain. Imagine sitting there, if you're choosing to, and not have the pudding, feeling that discomfort, letting that discomfort go, and then feeling good on the other side. Imagining all of that. So that was all I wanted to cover today in this workshop. I really hope it's helped you. And like I said at the beginning, you can take this practice and you can apply it to any event that you have. It doesn't just have to be Christmas. You can apply it to New Year's Eve. You can apply it to drink. Like if you want to include a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine or 10 pints, stick it on your plan. Knowing your reason why you're doing it and what you're signing up for is you having your control. So I don't see any questions, but if you have any afterwards, please always feel free to get in touch with me. You can email me at hello@nikkibevan.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I will be sending a copy of this recording out so that you can watch it again and use it again. But if there aren't any more questions, I wish you all a very wonderful Christmas, a very happy New Year. And I hope that however you're celebrating or not celebrating, that you have an incredibly peaceful time. Thank you for coming. Bye.